everybody. Welcome to the Cult Popskers. Come on, this is podcasting,
What?
guys.
Sorry, I didn't know where you were going with that because we do a series on the Oscars, and then also this.
I was like, I'm not Aaron. I'm Jeremy.
Yeah, and also this wrap up that we're doing. We don't give awards, but maybe we should give awards.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that you were so enamored with my excellent wordplay that you didn't know what to say.
I was left speechless. Yeah.
I'm going to no but your suggestion of cult Popskers, and I'm going to say, actually, no, AJ, this is the podcast of everything we watched this year.
Correct.
That's what it is. So get it right.
Yeah, it is not most disappointing. It is not. I think that's the only other thing we ever called it. But no, this is welcome everybody. I'm AJ. Over there's Richard. Over there's Jeremy.
Hi there, everyone.
This is our annual wrap up, something no other podcast in the world does, where we look back at the previous calendar year, talk about every film we saw in that calendar year.
And some we didn't see.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe crown a favourite. And maybe crown a most disappointing for old time's sake. This is probably part one. Unless by some miracle we don't talk for 3 hours here. So.
Unless by some miracle we only talk about the movies that Jeremy saw, and then it'll be about a 20-minute podcast.
And that's a big deal, Jeremy, because earlier this week you were like, do you guys want me on this episode? I haven't seen anything. We had a group call, guys.
Initially you had a call which I was not invited to.
And then I was like, Richard, can you get on this call? And you were like, what call? A devastating way to find out. But ultimately we decided that it really isn't every film we saw this year without Jeremy's sass, without his contrarian nature, frankly, without him frustrating the living shit out of Richard and I by inexplicably asking us to move on in the middle of a discussion. So we brought him back. The people's choice. The people's choice.
Quite specifically, probably not the people's choice. After your announcement last week, AJ, that you were not going to be doing as much on the pod, and you were like, but don't worry, everyone, on off weeks we're probably going to hear more from Jeremy and more from Jess. And then in the Discord, and everyone's like, yay, more Jess.
They'll take what they're given, Jeremy.
So this is, as always, this is like a sequel, a mirror image. It's poetry.
It's the fulfillment.
Of the Every Film We Will Watch in 2023 podcast, which we released around this time last year. Up top, there's always films that we miss, and we will be talking about, there'll be some films that only one of us have seen, some that two of us, and some that all three of us have seen. But I did just want to rattle off a few that people might be expecting us to talk about that none of us saw, so don't expect us to talk about them.
This is the best part of the episode.
This is where
the content you're not getting.
And what's going to be amazing is that you guys can actually go back into the analytics of your podcast apps, and you can see where the listeners dropped off, and you see how what percentage of the audience were just tuning in for these movies.
Yeah, cool.
So no chatting about Five Nights at Freddy's. May, December, The Holdovers, Napoleon.
Oh, sorry, I have seen The Holdovers. I've seen The Holdovers.
Oh, it just came out yesterday.
I saved off from all the Oscar likely nominees because we're doing a separate show about them. So.
Yeah, which I would have thought Napoleon would be, but it lost a lot of steam. Iron Claw comes out next week in New Zealand. Saw X, I don't think any of us saw. Is that right?
No.
Aquaman 2 only just recently came out, and
no one saw that.
No one saw it. Didn't make any sort of impact. Blue Beetle, I think we all just... I wanted to see it. I was overseas when it came out. Nimona was apparently a very good animated film on Netflix. Dream Scenario is only just coming out in New Zealand. Maestro, none of us have watched. Priscilla, none of us have watched. American Fiction isn't out here. And Wish, hilariously,
I've seen a bit of Priscilla.
Classic Jeremy.
He's seen it. Do you want to talk about it when we get there, Jeremy? The bit
I
of
have
Priscilla
I have some things to say about why I've only seen a bit.
on the bit of Priscilla.
But yeah, like it's like there's a few, as AJ would call, reverse Mandela effects, like films like Wish and Aquaman 2 is one, and Expendables 4 came out this year.
Oh, Expendables 4, Jesus Christ. That's crazy. And also, this is Richard's job now, but it's something I did when I was editor, so you'd better keep it up. There will be time codes in the show notes for when we talk about each film, because if all three of us have seen it, I doubt we won't spoil it. I think that's generally how it goes.
Because Jeremy specifically cannot talk about movies without spoiling them.
I think if one of us hasn't seen it, we generally try to shy away from spoilers,
film,
but...
Yeah.
It depends on the film. Yeah.
So if you guys will join me, you, the audience, as well as Jeremy, get that microphone out of your mouth. That is my microphone. I have lent to you. All the way back in January, which famously a dumping ground for terrible films. The first sort of surprise hit of the year was M3gan or Megan. About the film shot in New Zealand about a little robot doll going on a killing spree. And yeah, it was like I remember I got to see it early, but I remember thinking like, I think that was good, but I'm maybe not the best judge of these things sometimes. And then the Rotten Tomatoes score came out and it was like 80s or maybe even 90s, and people were like, Megan's good? What did you think of it, AJ?
I barely fucking remember it. We were just talking pre-pod. I actually consider this a 2022 film. Pushes glasses up nose, finger slips and pokes himself in the eye. No, I don't know. I mean,
there's no way for you to have seen it in 2022.
I must have. I think I watched it illegally in 2022.
No, you didn't.
Well, then I must have watched it very early 2023.
Yeah, it came out like first week of 2023, but it's a 2023 film.
So what I'm basically saying, Richard, is that it's a movie that I saw this in the year we're talking about. Which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that notable. I didn't think it was that interesting.
I think just the main thing is that it's like
more sequels.
It's better than you would expect. You watched this on the 31st of Jan. 2023, AJ. So.
You motherfucker.
So actually quite far into the year by some metrics.
Less than a year ago to this day.
So yeah, not much else came out in January, but February we had one of the ones I was reasonably excited for coming out, Knock at the Cabin, new M. Night Shyamalan film. I quite enjoyed this. Like, Shyamalan's an interesting one that, like, every one of his films that are like half decent are like, is this a return to form? And like, because I mean,
the next one sucks.
Yeah, because what was his last one before this? Would have been was old. Yeah,
yeah.
The Beach That Makes You Old, which didn't do very well with critics or audiences. And yeah, Knock at the Cabin. I thought Dave Bautista, like the really interesting cast. Dave Bautista was great in the role, and he turned down something else to do this. I'm pretty sure, or something, but.
It was Army of the Dead with Zack Snyder.
Oh no, he turned down the Suicide. He turned down the Suicide Squad to do Army of the Dead. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, AJ, what'd you think of Knock at the Cabin?
So
this feels like it came out in 2022.
No, so I was well into my job at Letterboxd when this came out. Yeah. So I was editing, like, Knock at the Cabin had quite a few, like, red carpet interviews and junkets. So, like, I was editing multiple videos on Knock at the Cabin. I was watching interviews. I watched an interview with M. Night Shyamalan where he just flat out responds to, like, people saying he's a bad storyteller. and he said something which I respect so much, which is like, he was like, I would rather swing for the fences than play it safe. You know, I'd rather make something crazy that maybe isn't for everyone than make nothing, then make anything else, you know? And I thought that was such a cool way to put it. I think Old is very funny, but not a good movie.
Yeah.
But I do, you know, some of my favourite movies are regrettably M. Night Shyamalan films, I think.
Despite my better judgment.
Yeah, exactly. And I watched Knock at the Cabin hearing it was like, quote unquote, one of the good ones. And I'm not sure I agree. As much as I respect him for swinging for the fences, this film's stock just plummeted as the year went on. Like there was a point where I was like, that was pretty good, and then it just sort of started sinking lower.
Well, better films came out, yeah.
But exactly. And don't get me wrong, I think Dave Bautista's great in it. I really like Jonathan Groff as an actor. I didn't necessarily think he was amazing in this, but I think M. Night Shyamalan, to dig a little deeper into his shortcomings, you know, because people spout out the same shit over and over again. It does twists, it does stupid dialogue and stuff like that. I think in this one, it was really just like, it gets to a point where it just feels so hopeless. The situation constructed feels hopeless. And then the ending is one of those endings where I don't feel inspired, or I don't feel like hope returned by the end of the film, but the film seems to think that hope returned.
Right.
And
You're
so
like, no, M. Night Shyamalan, that actually doesn't count as a good ending. I'm sorry, that's not happy.
I found it quite miserable in the end. It ends with, if we may spoil Knock at the
I am
Cabin,
not going to watch
Jeremy,
it.
It ends with one of the two gay dads, I think it's Jonathan Groff's character, decides to he has to die to save the world, which is the sort of Damocles hanging over the whole film, and I remember thinking, this is a movie about the genuine real world struggles of being like a gay man, a gay father in the modern world, right? Like they are both victims of like assault, like that you see in flashback, and it ends with like the remaining father and the daughter like driving off into the post-apocalyptic sunset, and I was like, no, this movie is about like what the world has taken from these two men. It should end with them taking something for themselves and letting the world die so that they can continue to live.
Yeah, otherwise it kind of feels a bit like using a minority for tragedy porn.
Yeah,
for sure, absolutely.
Because I mean that's something that is a critique of many filmmakers who try to sort of make a film about an issue that they're not actually personally attached to, and they're like, oh look how I'm shining a spotlight on how hard it is for this community, and the community can often be like, yeah, could you stop using us to like make people feel bad and actually tell stories where we get to be happy?
The bury your gays trope, but it's funny, AJ, because what you were describing is actually the ending of the book it's based on.
Oh, true. Well, that's better, I think.
In the book, I'm remembering a Wikipedia article I read almost a year ago, but it's like
where's Rachel when you need her?
The daughter dies, like by accident, sort of thing, and they're like the four horsemen of the apocalypse that have shown up, the Dave Bautista's gang. They're like, you still need to make a sacrifice, and they are like, I do not want to like serve a god who wouldn't accept her just dying as a sacrifice, so fuck you, we're gonna carry on. And so then they leave, and turns out, oh, the apocalypse was real, and you've doomed all of humanity. But yeah, like I think it's because I interviewed Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge for the film, and among and also Bautista and Shyamalan. But one of the cool things they sort of said about it is that it's like, even though you say there's all the subtext, but it's like, you know, a major motion picture that's just like has a gay couple at the center of it, and it's like
totally
it could be a straight couple, like, because a lot of what you're describing, you know, is subtext sort of thing that you could, I guess, just remove from the film. But yeah, it's like the representation.
Or they get assaulted for other reasons.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily.
But yeah, and Dave Bautista's character, because the whole thing is that it's like they are these people. They're burdened with having to carry this out, and it's like they are so conflicted, and it's like I can totally see why Bautista took on the role, because it's like it's a challenging performance. He's just a school teacher who happens to look like Dave Bautista does, and is the one burdened with carrying out, saving the world.
Yeah.
Magic Mike's Last Dance, I thought was pretty sexy.
Gave me a boner. Anyway, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I just quickly mention the Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, the Guy Ritchie film. There's like, because Guy Ritchie also had another film out this year, The Covenant, with Jake Gyllenhaal, and then he's got like another film coming out that it's like, every 6 months there is a new Guy Ritchie film I have never heard of until I see a poster. And it's like Operation Fortune was a lot of fun. It sets up like it's trying to be a franchise. But like Josh Hartnett, it was a lot of fun on it, and Hugh Grant is like shifted into a different part of his career and is having a lot of fun and seems to love working with Guy Ritchie.
Well, here's the tragedy of Guy Ritchie, right? Is whenever he makes a big mainstream film, it's something like Aladdin, the live-action Aladdin. And all of us film podcasters, we go, Guy, you had a niche with Lock, Stock, and Snatch. Why are you making stuff like Aladdin when you should be like doubling down into your like London gangster film niche? And he goes, "Okay, I'll make The Gentleman or Operation Fortune."
Wrath of Man.
These movies come out, and I go, "I'm not seeing that. Looks shit."
Yeah.
That's so sad. I feel so bad for Guy Ritchie.
But he's got a niche.
I saw King Arthur. I don't feel bad for Guy Ritchie.
Like part 1 of 9 or whatever it was meant to be. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, the first. This was interesting because I was thinking about, we quite often like assign a theme to a year. Like 2021 or 22 was like, this is amazing filmmakers not doing their best work. And it's interesting, like I feel like, and this will probably be, we'll talk about this a lot more, but like there was a bit of a blockbuster crash in 2023. The immediate response to that is that it's one of the highest grossing years. It might be the highest grossing year post-COVID, but a lot of the sure things that like traditional blockbusters flopped. And so we had like Marvel had their biggest flops ever. The new Indiana Jones flopped, and there was just like a lot of things that and even the successes, Barbie and Oppenheimer, weren't the ones that people were necessarily predicting to make over $1 billion. But I also was thinking that, especially as I caught up with a lot of the films, that I was like, 2023 is like 2020 3.5 stars. It's like, I feel like this is the year of 3.5 star movies, that there were so many films I was like, that's pretty good. Knock at the Cabin is a 3.5 star movie.
Like workman-like films.
Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Ant-Man and the Wasp would love 3.5 stars, yeah. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, probably the worst Marvel movie. Like,
I mean, I am loath to talk about Marvel movies anymore, and this is the last year you'll hear me do it, because this might even be the last. No, I saw Guardians, but I didn't see the Marvels. I said this a year ago, and I'm sticking to it. I am done with cape shit. The only superhero stuff I'm still watching is Spider-Verse. That's the only one I can think of that I'm still watching.
Are you going to go see Deadpool 3?
Probably not. Maybe if it's good, if people implore me to see it. But
you wouldn't watch this. Like, is there a sequel to the Batman?
Yeah, Batman Part 2 is coming out. I mean, maybe. I wasn't even that impressed with the Batman though. Like, it was enough of a directorial vision for me to like be interested. For sure, at least. You're right. Yeah,
I think what you're talking about is like you're done with Marvel's and Justice League crap.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the sort of continuing spiral of like superhero shit.
Of the same thing, the same not good enough thing. And this movie, I, funnily enough, didn't think it was as bad as everyone else did. I don't think it's the worst Marvel movie. I think.
Yeah, I guess, AJ, you love Marvel.
I just love Marvel too much to truly think that. What can we say on this? It is an eyesore. It's like an almost entirely CGI environment. It looks like shit.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that this was filmed a lot using the Volume, which is the digital green screen that they developed for The Mandalorian, where essentially, performing in front of like an LCD screen so that you can actually see what's going on. But it looks like shit. It looks disgusting. I
wonder if the Volume is just in its awkward adolescent phase, where it's same with green screen,
But I mean, like what I've seen of The Mandalorian, coming to the big screen soon, and The Mandalorian and Grogu, terrible. No, couldn't be less excited for a film.
Like the thing is that with that is that if you were going to name one of the two properties, Mandalorian and Grogu, name the first one, The Mandalorian and Grogu. So everyone's like, who the fuck is Grogu? And then, like you could have a reveal, but like,
But But yeah, like poor direction as well. There's like the thing that I pointed out like immediately after seeing it is that there's, well, they're in the fucking quantum realm or whatever the whole time, so they are technically infinitesimally small. But there's a bit where Cassie, his daughter, learns how to become big to use her giant man powers, and then Ant-Man shows up and is like, oh my god, you're huge. They're the same size. There is nothing in the scene or the filmmaking or anything other than him saying that to indicate that they are larger than normal. They are, the background is CGI, every character they're interacting with is CGI. It is shot identically. There is no attempt to show any scale. It's just like 101 filmmaking, Peyton Reed.
Yeah, and it's like I'm kind of like bored by the plot in general. The kind of like it could have been like a journey to the center of the earth send up, but it's not really even that. One thing that I thought coming out of it that was funny is like the title is like such a like Quantumania,
Yeah,
like it's very silly. It's a very whimsical title, and it's got to be like the least sense of humor an Ant-Man film has ever had. This should not be called what it's called.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't have an idea for what it should be called.
Ant-Man,
like,
the Wasp, and Kang.
Yeah, something else, because this is just not what the movie is about.
Just also on Kang is that like setting up, I mean, obviously there's shit gone down since this came out, but like setting up your big next phase villain and being like, and in his first proper appearance, he loses to Ant-Man, because there was clearly like, the ending was clearly reshot. There was apparently like leaks almost a year earlier, which were the exact plot, except the ending was different, because it ends with like, you think they're stuck in the quantum realm and then they defeat Kang and get out. And then there's a very sort of rushed ending where it's supposed to be like, oh, what's happening? But it so needed to be Kang got out and they were stuck in the quantum realm, because now it's like Kang isn't a threat. You know, like he lost to your C tier hero.
Well, he lost to the criminal justice system.
Very good, Jeremy.
And we can't move on from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, of course, without talking about MODOK. Jeremy, did you didn't see Quantumania? Do you know who MODOK is?
I haven't. Do you know I haven't seen a single Ant-Man movie, because just literally the entire concept of that as a character, I've just been like, no. So the only interaction I've had with Ant-Man is through like the Avengers, and through his involvement in other.
So to paint a picture for you, and I'm not a comic book fan by any means, but from what I understand,
I actually think
MODOK,
they're quite lame.
Push his glasses up, nose. MODOK is like quite a popular villain in comic fan world, because he's just an incredibly brash character design. He's essentially like a floating box with a giant face in the middle. He looks like George Lopez in Lava Girl.
Mr. Electricity.
But very popular in comics. There was a stop motion animated series made of him.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at it now. Holy
where Patton Oswalt played him. Very popular villain, and I think I was looking forward to MODOK appearing in the MCU at some point, because I was like, God, you swing for the fences, you know, you cast Jim Carrey as MODOK. Or you cast a big, heavyweight comedic actor in this.
Well, Patton Oswalt wanted to play it for a long time.
Patton Oswalt should have played him in live action. And then in Quantumania, it is revealed that not only did they not cast a big heavyweight to play MODOK, they cast Corey Stoll, a lightweight who's not a comedic actor, and played Yellow Jacket in the first Ant-Man movie, maybe the like genesis of forgettable Marvel villains, like literally just a bald white man. No offense, Jeremy. But you know what I'm saying? Like they
don't talk about my community without being a part of it.
He is like a blank slate kind of character, and people complained about him in the first Ant-Man film about him being just a boring, evil version of Ant-Man. And then I just think it's such an inexplicable choice to make that character become MODOK. Yeah. This interesting, fascinating, like experimental villain they were like, let's cast our most boring character we've already used.
The thing is that, like, when he's revealed, like, because he shows up with, like, a mask on, then it gets lifted, and you're like, holy shit, Darren Cross from the first film? And it's like, the disgusting CGI and the blandness of Corey Stoll's face are like, I couldn't tell it was him. They had to do it, they showed you a little flashback. But it's like, you need to cast someone with a super distinctive face or voice. And
exactly.
Yeah, like if you'd cast a known voice actor or something like that, or even just someone with a more notable voice than Corey Stoll. It needs to be someone people do impressions of.
Yeah. And you see, there's like a little montage where it shows how he became MODOK, and you see his little butt in it, and no one in my theater giggled or laughed, and it made it feel like it was like, in like prestige dramas where it like dramatically shows someone's butt.
Like
that's
po-faced.
what it felt.
They were really being po-faced in how they did it.
It felt like a dramatic beat, but because no one laughed is what I'm saying. But just disgusting CGI. Maybe the most unpleasant looking character I've seen in years. I can't remember.
One of those frustrating things, like I remember with Godzilla King of the Monsters, that it's like, no, I'm on your side with like Godzilla King of the Monsters should be just dumb monsters fighting and stuff, but like MODOK should look ridiculous, but it's like you have failed at trying to do what you were trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Also in February we had Cocaine Bear, which was fun. A 3.5-star movie, classic 3.5-star movie. To me, it was like, it's the closest thing I've seen in modern years to like a Without a Paddle or a Euro Trip.
Totally.
Where it's like a movie that's R-rated, an R-rated comedy with a high-ish concept, and you go to your friend's house for a sleepover, and it's the one cool friend, or like the one friend with a cool mum who will let you get out an R-rated movie even though you're only 13. And you put this on, and you have and it's a formative experience for you.
I 100% agree, and I have nothing to add, Richard. That's exactly how I feel about Cocaine Bear.
Creed 3. This was one of my first of my most anticipated for 2023. Another film with Jonathan Majors in it, who has. He's great in the film, and I interviewed him, and I had a great chat with him about the film. But Creed 3, it's interesting because this was a film I was really excited for, but was tempering my expectations because Sylvester Stallone wasn't coming back for it. He has like issues with the guy who currently holds the rights, but Michael B. Jordan taking over directing was super interesting to see what he does with his directorial debut. And there's a few far-fetched Rocky-esque sort of things. It is very Rocky 3 in a lot of ways, that you have this like angry guy, Jonathan Majors' character comes out of prison, and it's very much like, you have the life I should have had, like Clubber Lang sort of thing. But the main thing I genuinely loved the film. It was near the top of my ranking for the year for a long time. But the main thing is that Michael B. Jordan has a distinctive directorial style, especially the way he shot the fights. He's very heavily inspired by anime, which was like the thing that he kept on talking about. But the final fight between Majors and Jordan is like, it brought a new visual style to, like 9 films into a franchise, which is cool.
That's cool. I didn't see this and was going to, and guess what happened before I saw it, and then was just not really in the mood to watch it anymore. Again, Jonathan Majors shit. But it was funny because, again, this was like a video I'd edited a junket interview for Letterboxd that had Jonathan Majors in it. And
you're like, man, that guy can do no wrong.
It literally felt, it was a great interview. I was like, what a charming guy.
Yeah, I got along with him.
And we released, I think we made 2 videos from it. One of them came out while it was in theaters, and the other one we saved to release for VOD. But by the time it came out on VOD, it was like, hey, AJ, can we remove all the Jonathan Majors clips from that video before we post it? Which is like, it's one of these things. Same with the strikes this year, how like that resulted in some very like strange work for me because we didn't have interviews anymore. So I was editing some very like obscure, producers being interviewed and shit. And it's like, it's funny how these major things in Hollywood happen and they affect me. You know, like they affect me in quite a big way, like a relatively big way.
I guess you could
'cause now I've got
say Mage's things.
yeah, thank you.
That just tells me, because it didn't affect me at all. So all that tells me is that you're actually no longer just mild mannered AJ. You're an industry shell.
He definitely
That's
is.
exactly
you
what
that
I was going to
much.
say. Yeah.
So-
You're embedded. You're embedded in the industry.
Yay!
AJ has left the chat. He's gone. He doesn't need the podcast anymore.
Yeah, Jeremy, apparently last year on the podcast, I didn't re-listen to our most anticipated, but one of our listeners, Dr. Barrel, sent me a list of things to follow up on. And yeah, one was that, Jeremy, I promised I would take you to Scream 6. And then I actually remember not being able to find someone to go with, and I ended up going with a friend of mine, but and if she's listening to this, one that wasn't necessarily at the top of my list of people to take, but I don't remember asking you, Jeremy, and it's fine. I promised I would take you.
And the thing is, you did actually ask me a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
You sort of did that classic thing that people who don't have children do, where they assume that people who have children can like just do.
It's called being
social
polite,
things.
Jeremy.
No. Like you can do social things with like a day or two's notice, and you text me and you're like, "Oh, hey, in 2 days I've got this." I was like,
Well, so
I would
often,
love to do
what
that, but
always happens is that I invite someone, especially if it's like someone that's like particularly interested in the film that I've got a ticket to the premiere, and then they go, "Yeah, man, super keen." And then at 5 o'clock, the film is at, you arrive at 6 for a film at 6:30. At 5 o'clock, they go, "Oh, hey, man, I think I'm just going to go home. You'll be all good to find someone else." And I go, "Yeah, man, no worries." Like, this happened to me maybe 70% of the movies I had, like, premieres.
Really?
Yeah. It happens all the time, and it's so annoying.
I think, if people are getting something for free, they don't value it, right? So
yeah,
there
exactly,
you go.
yeah. But then it's like, so I end up going to a lot of them alone, and it's been like when I've got like 4 tickets for something, it's like, well, there's 3 people that couldn't go because I was hogging their tickets. Scream 6, though, I, at the time, loved it. Haven't really thought about it since in the same way that I did with Scream 5.
Yeah, I was staggered to learn people think this is better than Scream 5. I liked it, but it's the same thing as you. I liked this fine, but seeing how much people loved it made me like it less. Because to me, this is so clearly like, I'd put it above 4 and 3, but I'd put all the other Scream movies like miles ahead. Like, it felt like the least meta of them so far, which is disappointing because that's kind of like why you go to a Scream
in different
film.
ways, kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that Scream 5 is so clever and so.
But then I didn't find out until this was coming out that people hated Scream 5. It's considered like a bad sequel.
Scream 5 is.
Yeah. I keep on seeing TikToks that's like, oh, you have to watch one of these, and it's like Freddy's Dead, Jason Takes Manhattan, Scream 5, Halloween 6, and it's like, this is not remotely in the conversation. Like, Scream 5 is better than most of the first films in these franchises.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was excellent, but I just really like. I wasn't very into like the. I felt like the New York setting didn't add anything to it. I felt like
the bubble burst a little bit with like how it was like it felt like, oh, we're wrapping up everything, and because like the last one was such a love letter to just like the franchise, and then this one going one step further, it felt like they were closing the door on it in a lot of ways, because they were like, it's copycat killers and they have all of the masks and suits from the previous killers, and
yeah, it's just getting a bit too tunneled down, isn't it? Like the first Scream is like, what if there was a horror movie that was a pastiche on horror movies? And now Scream 6 is like, what if there was a horror movie that was like a pastiche on the nature of the franchises existing in this way, and our language around franchises, and how we react and how we respond to when there, and it was just like the whole thing is a parody of franchises. You don't need to do a dedicated one that's a parody of franchises, I thought, because that was this one's thing. Scream 5 was what, like a soft reboot parody, whereas this was like a parody on a film becoming a franchise. But it's like,
it's been a franchise for 4 films.
Yeah, I really liked the opening, like cold open is about like you follow someone dressing up as Ghostface as they go to kill someone.
Yeah.
And we both talked about this after we saw it, Richard, that like there was a moment where I was like, oh, Scream 6 is going to be the send up of like both sort of like these true crime documentaries or things like Joker or Nightcrawler, like the one that follows the villain. What a cool, obvious idea.
Just
the sympathetic villain origin
finding
story.
out who the killer is straight away. I was like, of course that's where you go with this film. Yeah.
And then that's not what it was at all. But that's the movie I would have preferred.
Yeah.
My
Cody Revolori
pitch,
as the killer.
Remember before this came out, everyone was like, oh, what kind of sequel is it going to send up? And I liked the idea of it doing none of the other sequels counts.
Yeah.
You know, this is
bring
a
back,
direct sequel to the first one.
What's his name? Randy.
Yeah, but do it in a way that doesn't actually, because the Scream movies, the real world still exists around the things they're hanging up, right? So the way to do this would be, if they do it in Scream 7 or whatever, it's got to be that like there is now a killer that believes that the events of the first film were the only ones that counted and is actively creating a murder spree to make it look like it's ignoring the 5 sequels between you know, it can't literally be that, because it can't
it needs to be that Billy and Stu were the only 2 that counted.
Yeah, exactly. But it can't be in the universe itself. The story has reset, because that's not in the language of Scream. It's always,
I would just
how
love to
do we
see Jamie
fit
Kennedy
this in
back
there?
though.
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe he's the killer, and he was like, "No, it didn't count because I wasn't killed by Billy and Stu."
No, but the thing is, like, Scream movies, like the funniest part of Scream movies is how far fetched the killer has to go to create the parameters of what they're trying to tribute. So the real life killer in Scream 7 would find the real life Jamie Kennedy and be like, you kind of look like the guy or you know, they'd find lookalikes that are played by the characters and bring them back. Yeah,
nice. So next up, another film that I don't think you saw, Jeremy, but you were quite excited for, is Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Well, I blew my load on being excited for this movie because of now I can't even remember his name. Zachary Levi. Then literally the day after we recorded it, it came out that Zachary Levi was sort of persona non grata in polite society anymore. So, look, I decided not to further burnish my my alt-right credentials by going and seeing this movie.
It was so bad. Holy shit.
It sounds like it was so bad.
It was garbage, man. Like, yeah.
That's really disappointing.
Yeah, like, just, but one of those crazy movies, like, Rise of Skywalker, where it's like, I can't believe that the same person who put, like, so much love and fun into the other film would just make this pile of shit. Like, it also has the looming over it that it's like, the franchise is about to end, so why invest in this? But, like, it was a slog to get through. It's a boring film. Wonder Woman shows up at a kid's funeral.
I've seen that scene.
It's so funny that it's like, it went viral on Twitter like this week, that the spoilers for Shazam! Fury of the Gods, but Billy Batson dies and they're at his funeral, they're mourning him, and then you hear and Wonder Woman shows up and she like fucking lightning bolts the ground or some shit, and then he comes back to life. It's so stupid. Holy shit.
You're like, it's that easy to bring people back to life? Cool, great.
Yeah.
There goes the stakes.
So 65. This was the film where Adam Driver fights dinosaurs. I watched this on a plane earlier this year.
Oh wow, a fantastic plane watch. Good choice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Fine.
I saw 65 in cinemas, the wrong way to see
Yeah,
it.
you're like, I'm done with cape shit for the year. My brain deserves so much better than that. Anyway, 2 tickets to 65, please.
Let me say what I liked about 65. First of all, I'll pay money to see
I'll pay
Adam
$65.
Driver, or at least I'll pay $65 to see Adam Driver. Like, Adam Driver is like a green flag, I think, for a movie that looks like it would otherwise be dumb.
Agree. Actually, really agree.
Yeah. This movie, and here's one other thing I like about this. I thought it was cool to see another major blockbuster about dinosaurs that isn't Jurassic Park and see like photorealistic but very different designs for what dinosaurs looked like. Right? Like, I think that was interesting. They embrace more of the like bird-esque elements of dinosaurs that scientists now believe is what dinosaurs actually look like. And that's about all I liked about it. I think this movie needed a sense of humor. My God, it needed a sense of humor. It needed to be like The Mummy kind of, you know, real world stakes, but the characters are lovable and quippy. But it was just really boring. My favorite Letterboxd review I wrote this year was for this movie, which was "Call Me 65, the way I be falling asleep in the cinema." But the thing, I pause for the uproarious laughter that came from that. But the biggest problem I have, and I think we might have talked about this when we talked about the movie for most anticipated, because it was such a... It's one of
the
these
trailer
like...
had just dropped when we did it, yeah.
Yeah. It's just this... It was this one of these fundamental decisions I disagree with. Do you remember when we talked about... This is going back some years. Do you remember talking about Holiday on Netflix Miss 2020?
Yeah, man.
And
I
how
didn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, and how I brought up the point that the fact that everyone knows the couple are pretending to be a couple completely dismantles the whole concept of the film. This movie is about... Okay, well, that was a salient as fuck point that I made about that film.
Fuck yeah, bro, your points are so salient.
Bro, fuck your points are salient, bro. This movie is about an alien race that look identical to humans, whose their planet's dying, and Adam Driver Noah's Ark's a ship out into the universe where he crash lands on prehistoric Earth, right? And I just think that is wrong. He should be a human in the not too distant future that like goes through a time bubble in space and ends up back on Earth. Because without that, not only does the character not have like context for what a dinosaur is, which I feel is like would be the most interesting thing for a human being to like dissect about being stuck in a prehistoric place, but the film is also regrettably called 65. As in 65 million years ago. But if they're not from Earth, it
should be called
title. Now. Yeah, it should be called Now. No,
what you're saying is that the time needed to be diegetic time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying that
the time was non-diegetic in the title.
Yeah, in the film it says 65 as the title, then it goes years ago.
65 years ago.
No, it does 65 million years ago. Like it has a really cheesy title sequence where it just spells out the concept of the film for you. But if the characters aren't from Earth, then it's not 65 million years ago, because it's just like a note for me, the audience member. I don't want that. Like, he should have been from the future.
He's not watching it. He's a character in the film.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just think that like it would have been a much more interesting film if Adam Driver was a human from the future that understood.
Well, and also like if you specifically tell the audience, now don't worry, this person you're watching is not human like us. He just looks like us. He's actually an alien. Right, you immediately put a barrier between you and the character in terms of empathizing with them. Because
totally.
And a needless one, it sounds like.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on was another film that came out in March, but none of us saw it. So, one film interesting, like, I know this, AJ, you were quite embarrassed to have this as the your top film for most of the year. But
oh my god, so embarrassed.
this year where he's like, push his glasses up nose. Yeah,
my glasses are so far up my nose they're digging into my skull.
Yeah.
I just want to point out to all the listeners that every time that AJ indeed says that he is doing it in a joking way, he actually does push his glasses up his nose.
Yeah, John Wick Chapter 4.
Yeah, I loved this.
Great film. Fantastic. It was a return to
So
form for the franchise that's kind of had diminishing returns for the last few. Didn't watch the Continental spin-off that they made. Didn't even hear anything about it. I don't know anyone that's watched it.
Mel Gibson's in it.
Yeah.
That's why no one watched it. No, look, I hear so John Wick's chapters 2 and 3. They fared quite well critically, but I just think they are such a far cry from the first film.
This one's perfect because it's so simple.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is like anyone who preferred the sequels, I was always so confused because it's quite a popular opinion. I think they have higher Rotten Tomatoes scores, but I just thought they were so average. And so I went into John Wick Chapter 4 being like, all right, this is probably the last one of these I'm going to give a shit about, Keanu. Like, I can't keep returning to these because you've just not, like, Chad Stahelski has just not created, like, a compelling enough story for me to want to return to it, right? But fuck, this movie fucking rocked. It was so fucking good that I was just blown away by it. I think it's certainly better than 2 and 3. I'd put it either on par or better than the first one.
Wow.
And it's certainly like, it's doing a different thing from the first one. So I'm not as torn because it's like, I can still hold the first one as this beautiful little elegant action movie. And this is like doing a new thing. Donnie Yen in this movie is... Oh, if we're talking about, like, we talked about how Scream 6 hasn't stayed with us at all, despite liking it at the time. I think about, spoilers for my favourite line in John Wick Chapter 4, and spoilers for the film, if you don't mind, Jeremy.
He's not even listening.
It culminates basically the parameters of the film mean that while they have a lot of respect for each other, Donnie Yen, who's a blind assassin, and John Wick must do a duel at the end of the film, and one has to kill the other, right? Like that's the delicious dramatic irony, is that they actually quite like each other, and they're lining up for the duel, and I think it's it's not Alfie Allen, he was in the first one. Who's the new guy?
Bill Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård, who has hired Donnie Yen to... Oh, Jeremy's got ice cream.
Oh,
Very
what the
nice.
fuck?
Oh, I chuck some through the Zoom, bro. Share it with the Zoom. So
My wife.
Bill Skarsgård has hired Donnie Yen, so he's like acting on behalf of Donnie Yen to kill John Wick. And Bill Skarsgård walks up to Donnie Yen and says something like, "Remember, once this is all over, your debt is paid." And Donnie Yen goes, "Fuck off." And it's so cathartic because, Bill Skarsgård is this worm of a character, right? This absolute weasel who's, like, making two friends kill each other. And Donnie Yen, this picture of, like, class and, like, you know, like, very serious kind of actor often, plays very wise characters, tells him to fuck off. And I think it might be my favorite F-bomb of all time, or certainly my favorite one in recent years. I thought it was so funny and cathartic and powerful, and more importantly, I feel as a performance, Donnie Yen is conveying so much by saying that. Like, he's not just doesn't like him, he's also, like, you know, mad that he's put him in this situation. Best F-bomb of the year, I think. And yeah, I that's one element of this film which I fucking adore. I thought it was so good.
It's great. It's funny. I got to see this film early as well, but it was very under wraps, and it was like just me, Kate Roger, who was another who's the reviewer for a different company, and then a security guard sitting behind us, making sure we weren't, because we had to, like, give up our phones and Apple Watches and everything, and just like we were like cheering and standing up the whole time, and like getting the security guard. Yeah, like we got him into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so now, like, I see him every now and then at like events that have security, and we're always like, "Hey, man!" But the thing that like got the biggest reaction from us in that screening was, and so Jeremy, like the third act of the film starts off with like this impossible fight that, you know, classic John Wick stakes, that he's at the bottom of about 9 flights of stairs in Paris, and he has to, like, very classic sort of thing, has to fight his way through each level of the stairs. And then he does, it's like maybe a 15-minute sequence of him fighting his way up, and then he gets to the top, gets knocked.
Donkey Kong?
And then he gets, and then he gets to like his last fight, and he falls down a flight of stairs, and then keeps rolling, and falls down another flight of stairs, and subsequently falls down all 9 or however many flights of stairs, all the way to the bottom.
I could not believe he fell back down the stairs. It's such a creamy, like delicious moment. Like it's such a good faith fuck you to the audience. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, this is so annoying and silly and stupid, but like
it goes for so long. Every time you think, oh, he's about to slow down, because it's like, you know, it'll be a flight and then like a plateau and then the other flight, and you think he's about to stop on each of the plateaus, and then it's so fucking funny.
That's so good.
Which is the thing about the John Wick films that a lot of the imitators don't get, is that like how much comedy is infused into these fight scenes,
and like rhythm as well.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, and I think what's interesting in action movies, right, is that action movies require, like really, really good action movies, like they speak to the audience, and it's a conversation between the audience's expectations and what the filmmakers are doing. And so like it's like when the filmmakers know who their audience is and they know who they're speaking to, they can get away with that kind of stuff because they're looking at you going like, yeah, we know. Oh yeah. Wait till you see what we've got. We've got a surprise for you later. You know, and you're like, oh, they get me. Yes. And Fast, you know, spoilers for a chat later on, but this is what the Fast series has completely lost, is they no longer, like Vin Diesel no longer either cares or understands his audience, and so that's why they're so terrible. Anyway, continue.
This episode should be called AJ and Richard Tell Jeremy About All the Films That Came Out.
Honestly, change the title.
The interesting thing about the thing of infusing comedy into it as well is that like later on in the year, and skipping ahead again, I won't bring it up when we get to them, but the Indiana Jones came out like a week or two before Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and it's like, I enjoyed Indiana Jones at the time, but a lot of people were like, oh, it doesn't have that Spielberg sort of flair. And then as I thought about it more, I was like, yeah, like there actually is such a, even in the bad one, well, a bit like, and you know, arguably 2's not that great, but like there is so much like fun in those action sequences, which Mission Impossible does have. That like there are so many comedic beats in Mission Impossible that are just the way Tom Cruise reacts to something in the middle of a fight scene, and it's like it'll be half a second shot, and to me, that's what makes the Mission Impossible movies sing. It's what makes John Wick sing. And something like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I mean, maybe it tried it in some places, but it just nowhere near the level that those films had. Like, Last Crusade has some of my favorite jokes in all of cinema. But yeah, just nothing like that. But we'll come back to that later on. Any final thoughts on John Wick, AJ?
No. It's currently second now. It's my second favourite movie of the year.
Crazy. One that I saw earlier in the year, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. This was interesting. So this is the directors behind Game Night and Vacation. So like what's becoming a semi-common thing is that, you know, you get you have a good indie or comedy or horror under your belt, and then you get given a big blockbuster like Dungeons and Dragons. And I was in a really bad mood when I watched this. I was really tired and really grumpy about something, and so I didn't love it at the time, but every time someone asked me about it, I would preface it with saying I was really tired and grumpy when I watched it. But it's like I can see it's a good film. I can see how much fun people had with it, and I was at the premiere, but the most special thing is that because I was sitting with these like diehard fans, being able, even though I'm not part of the fan base that it's catering to necessarily, but like there would be an establishing shot which would go past the support beams in a building, and there would be a creature sitting on top of that support beam, and people would laugh and cheer, and Chris Pine would be like, yeah, we've just we've pulled that job over and blah blah blah, and then people would be like, oh, holy shit. And so it's like it was just so cool to see, oh, this is the film that these people have been waiting for, and on top of that, it's not alienating me. I'm alienating myself because of my grumpy mood. And yeah, it was just like, it's a fun movie, and I hope they get to make more of them, because, it's not necessarily like quite an original blockbuster, but it's a new IP for the big screen.
Yeah, give me a franchise. I don't have anything against this movie. I don't think it hasn't stayed with me or anything, but like, it was fun. It was funny.
Yeah.
I think maybe I got everything I needed from the trailer.
Yeah.
And then, not that I disliked the movie or that the trailer spoiled the movie or anything. It's just like, oh, Hugh Grant is a villain? How interesting. And then seeing the movie, it's like, oh, yep, this is
it's the same character who played in Ruse de Guerre or The Gentleman. Now, next up, one of the ones that I had as my most anticipated, one of the highest grossing films of the year, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I thought this was great.
You tell the story, Richard. Tell the story of your experience with this film.
So, the whole thing. So I again got to see this film early, but it was like Nintendo was so under lock and key with this film that it was like I got notification like a day earlier, or like less than a day earlier about this film, when I normally have like a week or two's notice, and it was like, if you can't make the screening, you can't do the junket interview, because I was going to be interviewing Jack Black for it. And I just had this whole fucking blow up at work about like me prioritizing different things, yada, yada, yada. It was like this horrible thing to like get time off work. Well, it was for work, but like to make sure I could make the screening. And it was like, yeah, the super lockdown early thing, NDAs up the wazoo, whatnot. And, but after seeing it, and like when the review embargo lifted, I was like, video game curse is broken, you guys. This film fucking rocks. Like,
you messaged
they've
me,
done it.
Video game curse in tatters.
Yeah,
your exact
which is I was borrowing a turn of phrase from you, because you love the in tatters thing. So I was like, AJ will get a kick out of this. And
to
then,
shreds, you say.
And then more reviews started trickling out, and the film didn't have great reviews. I also lost out on my interview with Jack Black by another company being snakish and stealing it from me. But yeah, I mean, I thought this movie was great. Like, it ended up becoming a critics hate it, but the fans love it kind of movie. And it grossed over $1 billion. It was the first one to do it this year. And I ended up seeing it twice, because I went when it was out in cinemas. I went again. I took Jess, and we were both like, "Yeah, it's fun." You don't see the hatred for it. I can see why you don't think it's as good as I maybe thought, but yeah.
I messaged you after I saw it and said, "Video game curse alive and well."
Very healthy indeed.
Yes. No, look, oh my god! I haven't thought about it much since seeing it. It's just so tiresome. I didn't really enjoy any of the performances. I didn't really enjoy it's very generic. Yeah. I think that Mario is inherently quite a like unappealing main character for a movie. To be honest, I would also call him unappealing for a video game, but I've been unequivocally proven wrong in that department, I guess. But like I just felt like everyone was mad when I'm Just Ken got into the like best original song conversation, but Peaches by Bowser didn't. And it's like, that was not a song. Peaches by Bowser is just Jack Black improvising to like a weak piano melody.
Yeah.
Like, I am so surprised that took off. I expected better from Jack Black.
So did I. When the film and that bit in the film started, and it's like, oh my god, he's singing. I was like, of course. Come on, Jack. Like, bring me the song that's going to be an earworm, and I'm going to have it stuck in my head all year, but I'm not going to want it out of my head, and then it's just he's saying the word peaches over and over again.
Yeah. I just thought it was real bad, man. I'm so sorry. I just did not like it at all. Just thought it was dumb.
Now I wish I'd seen it so I could be like the deciding vote.
Yeah.
Because you know what I would have thought about it, don't you?
You would have loved it. The Renfield, the film where Nicolas Cage plays Dracula, which randomly was like the week of its release was pulled from release in New Zealand, so it was advertised for ages and then just never came out.
Right.
But I watched it on a plane as well.
Nice.
Earlier this year.
Good choice.
It's a lot of fun. Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage are both really good in the film. Like,
yeah.
Both really, really good, really fun performances. And, you know, everyone loves Nicolas Cage, but this was watching the film, it was one of those performances where I was like, I get it. I fully get Nicolas Cage, and that it's not just a meme. There is genuine talent, you know.
Totally.
And then also Nicholas Hoult is just like so much fun in the film. It's a really cute, fun little film. A 3.5
It's really
star film.
interesting because I heard multiple reviews that were all like, it's crap. Both of them are terrible. So that's really cool to hear.
Because of that.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when I saw the reviews. I was like, I was really looking forward to this. So maybe.
I was at 3.5.
It's actually available to me.
3.5 star film though. Like it's that
don't get me wrong,
solid film, but with a couple of really good performances.
My main connection with this film is I saw a clip from a podcast where they're interviewing Nicholas Hoult, and he rings up Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it's from the radio show where they like get people to call like one of their famous friends and ask if they're standing up or sitting down.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just lying on my bed, looking at cars." You're gonna buy one? Oh no, just looking. Oh, did you see our film got a positive audience score on Rotten Tomatoes? Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So next up, one that I won't harp on about, but one that I was very excited for, Suzume, which was the latest film from the guy that made Your Name and Weathering with You.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's a little bit more of the same. He originally wanted to make it a queer love story, which is really interesting, and watching it through that lens, because it's kind of like, the love story is a little bit, you know, we've seen this before, but the studio told him it had to be a straight love story.
What a cool thing for a studio to tell.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing I will say about it is it's so fucking funny. Like, that was the thing that really struck me about it.
The thing I'll say about it was they made the right call.
Now, one that AJ, I hope you'll lend me the same as I just did to you, that only you have seen. Beau is Afraid.
What did you just do to me?
I only talked about mine for like a minute.
Right. I mean, Beau is Afraid was a pretty big release of the year. Very divisive, very controversial.
The fact that it's 3 hours is why I didn't see it.
Oh, it flew by. I didn't even notice. I was actually surprised when it ended, because I was like, has it been 3 hours? But what I will say is you two would fucking hate it. Both of you would, for different reasons. You two would both fucking hate it.
Why would each of us hate it? Fuck you.
Richard, you would think it's too long and like hard, like unnecessarily complicated, and Jeremy, you would think it's like pretentious and etc. etc.
Jeremy, you just hate it because you're racist.
And you'd both be correct. But it was like, I really liked it. I think, where have I ranked it? It is my 11th favorite film of the year.
Wow.
I thought it was
I still
great.
didn't even watch the trailer. I don't know anything about it.
It's a very strange, very shocking movie. It's one of these movies similar to Saltburn, where like people who don't watch as much movies as we do go like, this is insane. Yeah.
There's many movies.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Jeremy, push your glasses up your nose.
You're so kind for correcting me. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I thought it was very visually spectacular, very visually unique, and had some really shocking, scary moments in it.
Spooky. Cool. Speaking of shocking, scary moments, Evil Dead Rise came out earlier this year, which I'm surprised you never actually got around to seeing, AJ.
No, that's one of the ones that slipped through my sneaky little fingers. My greasy, grubby little sausage fingers.
So this was one that
Prince Charles, your King Charles fingers.
Yeah, he's actually King Charles, Jeremy. Thank you for correcting this.
This was one that I was asked to review or like and do the junket for. And I was like, not going to do it because I was like, I don't want, especially in cinemas, I don't want to watch in cinemas. But it was filmed in New Zealand, so I was like, fuck, I feel like, and I was going to be the only New Zealand media doing it. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I should. So I watched this at like 9 a.m. on a Tuesday by myself in like a pitch black theater, and took my like overshirt off, held it as a blanket in front of me for the scary bits, and like. Thank you, Jeremy. But
You're so cute.
The thing,
Don't laugh at him. He was a very brave boy.
I was so brave. You have no idea. But it's interesting that because I found it quite scary. I'll be honest. But I recommended it to some friends and they were like, yeah, it was good. It wasn't that scary. There was no jump scares, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But the thing, it's interesting that like Evil Dead. Like its thing now is that it just these really like visceral things, like, so you know in the 2013 one there was like the chick licking the razor blade, like pulling a needle out of her eye. It's like so in this one it's like someone swallows glass and you see it like poke at, like a super close up of it poking out of their neck. You see someone's trying to crawl away and they get a cheese grater like slammed on the back of their calf and like a massive chunk taken out. And it's like all these kind of things that just those things that make you go, ugh.
Like you feel it in your body while it's happening.
Yeah. But it's a really cool movie. It's really good. Like,
is it the one I saw? There was I think it was an Evil Dead thing. The thing about all the blood in the elevator and how they managed to achieve that.
I think so,
is that the film?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's really great. Like the Elizabeth Sutherland who plays the one who becomes possessed does a great performance. Lily Sullivan, it's like a star-making performance from her, I thought. And yeah, just like a lot of fun. The opening is like really cool as well. The title card is probably my favorite title card of the year. It's like really well done. And yeah, no, just would recommend.
Is that it coming out of the lake?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah, but it's like it's also it doesn't come across probably as much as like when you're just watching it on Twitter or whatever, but like it is
a GIF on Twitter.
Yeah, it is so fucking loud, that moment. Like the Evil Dead, like this film has a really great sound design to like heighten how scary it is. But just the way the intro ramps up, because it's kind of like this is the last time this happens. So it's like a very condensed version of like not of like a previous film, but like the people that this happened to before the main characters. And it like the way it just ramps up, and then there's like this deafening roar as the words "Evil Dead" rise above the hills behind this lake.
Cool.
It's great.
Nice.
First film. Is this the first film, Jeremy, that you've seen to talk about?
I think so.
Yeah. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Jeremy, what did you think of it?
If I could just jump in before Jeremy and say my opinion. Is that
was that a joke?
No, that was a laugh. That was a wee jape.
Yeah. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, I mean, I feel like they blew their load already, and there's not that much left to care about. And so the whole time in the theater, I was just like, yes, I recognize all these characters. Yes. They've got, I mean, you know, Gamora coming back and not being in love with him and stuff like that. But it just felt like that was literally the only beat that they had for the entire movie was the whole like, will they, won't they, with Gamora thing. And
it's also probably the most interesting part of the movie, which is actually, I think there are plenty beats, but that's the one you're remembering because it was the most interesting.
Yeah. The rest, that was the only one that really stuck out as like this is something you can hang some action and some relationship around. And everything else was just kind of like, you know, Dave Bautista's character, kind of, you know, what's going to happen with him, and what about the girl with the feelings, and I don't know. It had just been too long
woman,
since
am I right?
It had been the girl with the feelings. It had just been too long since I'd actually spent time with these characters, and coming back, it didn't really feel like there was any major reason to get back together with them. And then, man, the mechanics of the massive skull ship at the end. Oh no, sorry, the massive ship crashing into the skull planet thing at the end, and how they had to like hold it there.
Oh yeah.
And until everything was so clunky, and you could just see them going like, how are we going to make this a really awesome thing? And like all the children who were being kept captive, it was just
who gives a shit about kids?
Well, it was just moving from one thing.
I've got two of my own. I don't care about these ones.
No, but the thing is though, like it was just like, this is the problem when you use like, oh, we've got thousands of children, and it's just like it's sort of a shortcut for making you care about whether or not they live or die because they're children, rather than actually like getting you invested in them as people. It's just like, oh, they're children, so you've got to care about whether they live or die. And it's just, I think that's kind of that sort of sums up a lot of why I didn't care about this movie. It's like, hey, it's Guardians. It's the one in the Marvel universe you still care about. So here you go. Here's more time with them. And I'm like, I actually don't care about them. Sorry.
Yeah, I, by this point, very openly sick of watching Marvel films, but everyone's like, oh, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Marvel is so back. You know, everyone's like, James Gunn has done it again. And my response to that is, I'm sorry, guys. If you're out, this is no better. Well, it's a little bit better, but
this is so much better than Quantumania.
For sure. I'm not saying that.
It was a film in which you could tell care had been taken. There were good actors still involved who maybe still enjoy playing those characters. Some of them at least did. And I have to say the planet they were on, that they landed on, and they like had all those the sort of townspeople who were really puzzled as to why they were there and stuff. That was kind of interesting. That was funny.
Yeah.
I thought this film was great.
Okay, do you want to go next?
No.
And I'll go last?
No, you don't.
No, that's all you had to say?
Well, no, I don't know. I do think it was great. I thought it was the best post-in-game Marvel movie.
Probably, but again, I just don't care enough anymore. And I think
I'm just so much better than you.
I think James Gunn's a hack. I think he's a deceiver. I think he is the devil. And he's tricking everyone into thinking that he has a better knowledge of superhero movies than anyone else, and that's why he's going to revive DC from the ashes of which it currently is. And I reckon his Superman movie is going to be average. I don't know. I'm just not. I don't care anymore. And
so he's just next gen Joss Whedon.
Yeah, totally. Even though he was like, "Hey, AJ, I'm talking to specifically. I know you don't care about Marvel anymore, but you will care about this one, I promise." And it didn't do that for me. This is coming off the back of the holiday special that came out like December last year or December 2022, which I thought was so bad and just it did not help the case of Volume 3. And I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble. You guys ready?
This is the N-word.
Cancel him. It's not
the N-word. This movie tries to be like, hey, look at this backstory of this raccoon. And it's poor,
this raccoon and it's poor.
It's poor. It's poor, grotesquely deformed animals, and like how tragic when one of them dies. I'm gonna say it. I don't know if I care. I'm so sorry.
You are cancelled.
I think that, remember when Holdo does the Holdo maneuver in Last Jedi, and like anyone who just likes film was like, that bit fucking rocked. But everyone who is a Star Wars fan was like, that should have been Admiral Akbar. And it's like, Admiral Akbar is a jokey squid man. I do not take that character seriously. And I'm so glad it was not Akbar who did the Holdo maneuver, right? And in the same way, it's like, I get that it's like, hey, I'm going to make you care about a raccoon. But it's like, it's still kind of like hard to find it like completely dramatically valid, I think.
I so agree with you that I had completely forgotten about that entire story arc as I was thinking about Guardians. I had completely forgotten that pretty much the main story of the film was the raccoon's like backstory and redemption.
Which is like, his name is Rocket!
I think what you guys are saying is fucked. Like, I'm sorry, I have 2 cats, and I love them more than I love you guys.
You should be sorry that you have 2 cats, but okay, go on.
Get fucked. Get absolutely fucked. Anyway, my feedback on that whole storyline, too sad. I was watching the movie and I was like, this is too sad.
Yeah, maybe that's what I mean. Maybe my ability to take Rocket Raccoon seriously, it requires him to exist in a spectrum of drama, and putting him past that threshold, I start to go like, well, it's just a CGI raccoon, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, this was like, I was genuinely like, yeah, too sad. Like, you can't toy with me like that.
Maybe.
There's another film later on which maybe you would have enjoyed for those same reasons, which I didn't enjoy. But Book Club 2, the next chapter, I've got quite a bit I want to say about this. No, it was, if you liked the first one... Is it better
than Book Club 1?
It's not. Book Club 1 has like this whole overarching thing that it's like very...
oh my gosh,
they're reading 50 Shades of Grey, so there's like, oh, these old women are like reading a sexy book.
There's a movie about characters reading 50 Shades of Grey? Yeah. That's the plot of a movie?
Yeah. And then the second one is like, those same girls... they're gone on holiday. And it's like, yeah, it takes away the sort of like part of the hook of the first one. Fast X, here we go. Jeremy, you only just watched this week. I famously thought F9 was fantastic when I watched it, and then rewatched it and thought it was terrible. And I wanted to go into Fast X trying to anticipate that drop off that like you get watching this film without just being like the hype of a new Fast and Furious movie. And so, yeah, 3.5 star film, I think, personally. But
I reckon
pretty bad.
This is the worst blockbuster I saw this year, I reckon.
Oh, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that the problem with it is that like, I feel like I can maybe be misunderstood when talking about Fast and Furious, because I think when people find out I by and large don't like the series, I think they have an idea of like how seriously I take
how far your glasses are up your nose,
how truly far I can push my glasses up the bridge of my nose. But genuinely, hand on heart, finger on glasses, pushing up my nose. Furious 7 is like a masterpiece.
Fast 5,
maybe by accident. Fast 5 as well. Fast 5 and Furious 7 genuinely, like, whatever it is they're trying to do, they succeed at it. And I can watch those movies and enjoy them. I think Fast 5 has the edge in terms of, like, how smart of a movie it is, but Furious 7 has the edge of how fun of a movie it is. Totally. And I like Furious 7. I unironically like Furious 7. I think it's probably an accident that it's so good, but I unironically like it, right?
It was a car accident that was so good.
Are you referring to just the general cars and the Fast
No,
series,
I'm talking about the fact that Paul Walker died in a car accident.
You were making the dark joke.
Yeah,
okay.
it was.
And since Furious 7, it has just been so clear to me that they should stop doing these. Like, it has been so clear that this is a way that all these built men who aren't enough in touch with their emotions, this is how they have to deal with their friend dying. It feels like they don't know how else to work through that baggage other than to keep making these, despite the universe seemingly being like, you had a pretty good ending, you could keep it there. And I thought this was so silly, I thought it was so stupid. We talked about it on Patreon, for the record, if you want more in-depth views on it. I liked Jason Momoa's character. I thought, what a fun character. I wish all of them had fun villains like this now, basically. That's the nicest thing I can say about it. I think Vin Diesel is lost to this franchise. I think he is just never getting out.
The promotional tour for it, where he's like, because this is, Fast X, this is part 1 and there's going to be a part 2, and he was like teased a part 3, and then he said like, And then there's one where he's like, when we finish off this one, then we can talk about spin-offs. Spin-offs? Did he just say spin-offs? Oh,
yeah,
my God.
he's like waiting for someone to be like, whoa.
And then there's the one
like
where
when I made that joke before and no one laughed.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. But he, you are Vin Diesel. But he also talks about doing a spin-off called The Torettos, which is so. It's like when he announced that, I retweeted it, being like, I can't wait for the new Breaking Bad spin-off, Walt and Jesse. And then someone replied and was like, oh, and the Hank spin-off Minerals, and I was like, you have missed my joke, but
The Torettos sounds like a terrible 1980s family sitcom.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I thought the ending was so stupid. I think there's so many holes to poke in it, and as my astute Letterboxd review for this film said, the joke isn't funny anymore.
Yeah.
I just think whatever was so great about Furious 7, it had enough good faith to get people through, I think, to Hobbs and Shaw. I don't think F9 received the same treatment.
Except from me.
Except from you. But I don't know. I think that the parabola is dipped now, and there's no getting back to the heights of Furious 7, no matter what they do. And I also think what's his name? Louis Leterrier, one of the worst directors to helm a franchise that's chock-a-block full of some questionable directors, to say the least. And just the filmmaking's not as good.
Yeah, Justin Lin is the GOAT.
Yeah, but I don't like half of the ones he did either.
Yeah, well,
I think James Wan
probably
is the best one.
I mean, as the person on this podcast who famously loves pretty much loves all of them, unironically, this was hateful. This film was just the biggest part. There was nothing to enjoy for me in this film. Every other Fast movie, you basically get to, and what happens for me in Fast movies is that they always add something new onto the top of the pile, and even though the rest of the pile is kind of going down in terms of how much enjoyment you can kind of wring from it, and for instance, Dom has just been a horrendously po-faced boring character for the last 5 movies, but it's okay because they could have sort of keep jumping up other characters to make them shine, and they bring more people in, and they brought The Rock in, and that was great, and then they bring in every villain that then turns into the next sort of good guy and stuff like that, and they've just run out of good people to bring in. They brought in Jason Momoa, and I could not stand a second of him on screen.
The best part of the movie you couldn't stand.
Oh, woo! I literally just couldn't stand him.
Must have been rough for you.
It was just so it was like he was just too self-aware as an actor of I'm going to be the fun villain. Yeah. Oh, I'm outrageous. Ugh. And I just hated it. I hated it's like when you watch it's like, when you're watching a kid who's been told that they are really, really good on stage, and yet they don't actually have the self-awareness to act well yet, but they just have all the sort of confidence and is it bradagio of just being I'm amazing, and everyone's told me I'm amazing, so I'm a performer.
Yeah, I started a podcast with one.
It was horrendous, and the whole chase scene through Rome just went on and on forever. And normally I'm a big fan of kind of the fact that physics doesn't work in the Fast universe, and maybe it's the direction that you're pointing out, that just lost its gloss for me. Just did not care, wanted it to end from almost the moment I put it on.
Yeah, hard out, man.
So another one that we've all seen, The Little Mermaid. May a big month for the three of us. But yeah, Little Mermaid, this AJ and I have spoken about it on Patreon already, and I don't know how much I have to say here, but the main thing I will say about this is that it's until she goes up onto land, this is far and away the best Disney live action remake, and then after that point it's just fine. I was in love with the first hour of the film, and I've always thought Little Mermaid is less interesting in the second half anyway. But yeah, just to me, like the difference was night and day. It was crazy.
Yeah, I guess I would say I worry I've overpraised it from when I first saw it, because now I'm like, I don't even like this that much. I gave it like quite a good review.
You were high, I remember, and you very much
but
let that affect you, I think.
Yeah,
I think also partly this film, when it came out, there was such a sort of a cultural moment around it. It's like, oh, it's a black Ariel. Oh no! And it's just like, I just have so little time for that I really was pulling for it to be an amazing film just to shut them all up.
Wait, so sorry, are you saying you have so little time for a black Ariel or so little time for the backlash?
Thank you, Richard, yes.
Because legitimately, I was confused for a second. I was like, holy shit, Jeremy.
Oh, right. Okay, well, I'll just be very clear then. I have so little time for that kind of backlash.
Okay.
And to be fair, Halle Bailey was 100% the best part of this movie.
She's so good at it.
Like just absolutely incredible. I mean, as a for me going into a remake of a musical, the number one thing I'm going to be looking for is the songs and the singing. And her, like I didn't know it was possible. She made her version of Part of Your World is the definitive version.
It's so fucking good.
So good. And like, I can't stand in musicals where someone goes to remake or redo a song and they like want to put their own spin on it. And so they like do, crazy. The only way to do their own spin on it seems to be to do a crazy amount of runs in really inappropriate places. And she somehow does her own runs and changes it just subtly enough and extends notes in parts. It's beautiful. She does such a beautiful job. Her face is so eminently watchable. Like it's that innocence of the Little Mermaid and how she can make such terrible decisions, quite frankly. But you believe it because you're like, she just actually is just attacking life, like she's just going after what she's passionate about. So totally believe that. Almost everything else in the movie is just a massive step back from the animated version. And I think one issue with these remakes that I haven't actually cottoned onto before or talked about before is that in lengthening them, what they often do is they go like, oh, you know what was always frustrating about the first Little Mermaid is that the second half of the movie where they're on land, it's really just short and you don't get that much detail. And so we're going to really flesh out the world. We're going to flesh out the world and give you more characters in this world and make you care about it. It's just like, hey, guess what? The original filmmakers, the reason they didn't flesh out the world is because it's completely not relevant to the drama and the plot. Yeah. And so they just fill out this world with a bunch of people you do not care about and give us scenes that just pad out time and just make the whole thing way more clunky. And so I think that was the massive problem with Beauty and the Beast remake. That's a massive problem here as well. It's beautifully shot in many places, but it's again searching for a reason to be.
Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Christopher Walken's Ooby-Doo, I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book remake?
I hated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So moving on to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the number one film on Letterboxd this year. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I've had sort of the slightly frustrating but interesting journey with this film. I rewatched it 2 days ago.
Right, yeah.
But because I really wanted to come to this podcast with like a clear vision and a clear review of the film, because I was one of those unlucky cinema goers that went to see this in between the like audio fix, and my God, it is. I have never been to a film in the cinema that has been as inaudible as this. I was so disappointed. The film.
And you've seen Christopher Nolan's entire filmography.
No, but at least those were loud. This was like quiet. Like this was like it was set to like 4 out of 10 volume. It was weird. Like people eating their popcorn was louder than the film. No. It was so weird. And it was just like so many lines lost in the dialogue. And it doesn't help that it's a film which like has so many like narratively stylized characters. So people like, for example, one of the main characters in this is Spider-Punk, who's from the Punk universe, who is, like, animated different from everyone else, and also, like, the voice is mixed separately, so I couldn't hear a thing he was saying. It was so frustrating. I picked up enough of the plot, because they sort of explain a lot of the plot and diatribes in this film, but I'm so glad I watched it again. I did have to watch it in 2 halves, which in a lot of ways is, like, just as bad as not watching, being able to watch something and hear it the first time. I think it's so awesome. I do think Into the Spider-Verse has the edge.
Yeah.
But I do think this is still a 5-star film. I think that the way it builds what it does with its building blocks is so eminently clever and thoughtful, not as in nice, but as in, like, thought went into how to make all this stuff works. The shit around, like, canon events and stuff, it's so brilliant and it's so great. And like, I love, spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, I think my favorite part in rewatching it that I'd forgotten about it is, like, how exactly they communicate to you that Miles Morales is a multiversal anomaly. I think that's such a smart, because it feels retroactively thought of, but it works because it feels set up in Into the Spider-Verse, which I don't know if that would have been intentional or not. Just the way with the fact that the spider that bit Miles was from another dimension. All that shit, I loved it. I think it's not as funny as Into the Spider-Verse, which is a shame. And I think a big reason for that is that Peter B. Parker, Jake Johnson's character, isn't in it till, like, over halfway through, and Spider-Pig's not really in it. Spider-Ham, sorry. All these things that made the first one unexpectedly hilarious are kind of, like, they're traded out in favor of, like, beautiful, cool, energetic animation, and all that's awesome. It's just not funny. I think Spider-Punk is such a great character, and I like that he's not two-dimensional, but his, like, anti-authoritarian, the joke that he's a punk plays into the story quite well, because he's the one that helps Miles, like, fight the system. So all of that is great. The one thing I don't like about the film is this, like, nostalgic terrorism of, like, and look, it's a clip from Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man. We got him. And I just don't do that shit, man. Keep it out of Spider-Verse. Like, it really, like, weakened it now, because I'm used to seeing that bullshit in the MCU, and to see it in this, which is in Spider-Verse, which is so, like, standing on its own despite everything stacked against it, despite it being a multiverse film, despite it being a superhero film. It is so its own thing. And seeing Andrew Garfield, it's not even a cameo, it's just a recycled clip from
just a clip.
Amazing Spider-Man. And I was just like, I don't like that. But other than that, it's so good. The music's so good. The animation's so good. The story's so good. The character arcs are so good.
One thing that's really interesting, and I sort of felt this watching it, but wasn't, like, super clear until when I was cutting some stuff for Letterboxd for their end of year review stuff, and so had to get a file and searching for, like, the right clips, and so seeing the film with, like, the time code and being able to scroll through and see when things happen, that, like, it's a very, it's well-paced in the sense that, like, it flows from one scene to another, but, like, in terms of when plot beats happen and when act changes happen, it's a very strange movie. And it's, like, this is very much part 1 of 2, but, like, the inciting incident is, like, an hour into the film. And then the sort of act 2 is, and then like the third act is the last hour of the film, when it feels like it's the last 20 minutes. But it's
no, I agree.
It's because it's also like the longest Western animation film ever made. But it's like it's crazy, and watching it, you may or may not feel it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, watching it this time, I rented it on YouTube, and watching it with a progress bar, it was like, holy shit. And that's maybe one other thing I don't like about it, is, or at least in comparison to the first film. I think Into the Spider-Verse is a way more, like, obviously structured film. This feels like it could end at any moment after, like, the hour and a half mark.
Yeah.
You know?
So Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best films of the year, though, I would say.
Totally.
So,
I've ranked it fourth.
I think it's number 2 currently. I switch around my top few every now and then. But the Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, this was just as forgettable as you would expect. There was
I'd already forgotten it came out.
Yeah, there was I went to see it with a friend, and there were these 2 characters that I was like, why the hell were they in the film? Like, they served no purpose. But apparently when I went to go pee, they did one thing, and that was the whole time that they were in the film. All they had to do. Yeah, boring, completely forgot it. Strays, this is the other film I was talking about animal abuse that you might find funny. So Strays is it's CGI dogs interacting, and so it's about Will Forte plays the owner of this dog, voiced by Will Ferrell, and the whole joke is that he's such an abusive owner, but Will Ferrell's character thinks that these are all games, and so it's he plays this great game where he kicks me in the head and shit like that, and but it was he was. It was that Will Ferrell's character revealed to Will Forte, the dog revealed to Will Forte's girlfriend that he'd been cheating on her, so he fucking hates the dog and he's stuck with it. And then he plays this game where he drives him out to the middle of nowhere and leaves him there, and then Will Ferrell always finds his way back. And then eventually he goes so far, leaves in the middle of the city, drives back to the middle of nowhere, and then he meets up with these other dogs who convince him no, you are in an abusive relationship, we need to sort something out. And so Will Ferrell is I know, his favorite toy he's always playing with, I'm going to bite his dick off. And so the whole film is this quest for the dog Will Ferrell to go find Will Forte so that he can bite his dick off. And, they go, it's a road movie, essentially. So there's a couple of things about this film.
Is this movie good or bad? Because it could go either way based on your description.
Couple of things about this film. So one is that, and I was talking to a friend of mine who worked in the promotion of this film, because I was I hated that. I thought that film was so fucking bad. And then she said that it was interesting that everyone in their office, it was split between if you had pets or not, was whether you found it funny. Because I was just this is just a comedy about animal abuse. And I was I actually just don't find that funny at all. I can't laugh at any of these jokes because they're so mean-spirited.
Because the very foundational concept of the conceit of the film is that he's abusing his dog.
Yeah. And the other thing, and AJ, this is what you and I would go on about if we'd seen this movie together. So I've told you the plot of the film. Spoilers for Strays, that it culminates in they get back to Will Forte's house, and Will Ferrell the whole time has kind of been no, he's still my best friend, I still love him, and he's maybe not going to go through with the dick biting, but then they get there and something horrible has happened to show that he truly doesn't care about the dog, and so they one of the dog, one of them is a really big dog, and he pins Will Forte down by his arms and shits in his mouth while Jamie Foxx and one of the other dogs are holding his legs. I think the house is burning down at this point as well, and so he's wearing.
This sounds awesome. I love the sound of this.
He's wearing these sweatpants, just those grey sweatpants, and slow mo. Will Ferrell, the dog, chomps onto his crotch area, and you can see it start to bleed as he's screaming, and then he gets a shit in his face. And it's one of these and I was so disappointed with that scene, because the entire time, and you would agree with me, AJ, if you'd seen the film, I needed to see Will Forte's penis come off. I needed to see the actual penis be removed.
Chekhov's gun.
I need so he bites the guy's dick off, and then during the credits or a post-credit scene, Chekhov's the new Chekhov's gun. But it's no, sorry, we weren't able to find the penis and reattach it. But it's I needed to see his pants get pulled down, a funny prosthetic penis, and then the prosthetic penis flying through the air. And so the whole time I was
bits of blood.
Yeah, the whole time I was I could tolerate this movie. This could still be a win if I see a severed penis flying through the air, and they didn't give that to me. And it's like it's a very R-rated comedy. I was like, you have failed at the one thing you set out to do. And yeah.
Well, because the inverse is why Fist Fight, while a bad movie, has stuck in my mind, because the titular fist fight, it teases the whole film, it fucking rocks when you actually get to it.
Yeah. And then so another film that came out that only I saw. This was a controversial one for the year. Again, I saw it a little bit early, and I was maybe swept up in the hype of it a little bit. But this is The Flash, which came out to incredibly bad reviews after getting because obviously Ezra Miller couldn't promote the film because of their crimes. But the promotional tour for this was just getting the filmmakers getting their famous friends to tweet that they loved the film. So Stephen King, Tom Cruise tweeted about it, all these people. And watching the film, after the film came out, cam rips of all these different bits went viral. There's a bit where Ezra Miller puts a baby in a microwave, and in the film, that is played for laughs. It's the scene where he's a building is collapsing, and this sort of the neonatal wing falls out the window, and using his super slow-mo speeds saves each individual baby from a very Looney Tunes style death. It's close up on a bottle of acid that cracks open and is flying towards a baby, and so he has to push that out of the way, and one of them he saves by putting in a microwave, and the microwave's not on, it's not plugged in. But then also at the very end of the film, with the controversial thing about they using maybe not using AI, but definitely CGI'd these actors from Beyond the Grave. So Adam West is kind of in it, but Christopher Reeve is one of the main ones, and they use a CGI Nicolas Cage. He did actually film for a couple of hours, but it wasn't the scene he was told it was going to be. He's in it as Superman, and there's all these things, and there's also really dodgy CGI in it, but a lot of the stuff that people are complaining about, the bad CGI in that scene where they've resurrected everyone, it's if you see the movie, you would give it the benefit of the doubt that it's this is a stylistic choice to look like this. It's just that the style you've chosen is bad CGI. It's not supposed to look photorealistic. But the thing is that everything else in the movie, the stuff with old Michael Keaton as old Bruce Wayne, Ezra Miller is fantastic in the film. Might be the best.
Yeah, stop praising these cancelled actors.
Might be one of the best lead performances I've seen in a superhero movie. The character of Barry Allen is supposed to be kind of annoying, so there is a little bit of that you might find off-putting, but. Yeah, the emotional stuff with because the whole thing is set in motion because Barry goes back in time to save his mum, and then that fucks up the timeline. And yeah, the stuff with his mum is all really well done, and it's you forget, in spite of all of Ezra's crime, they were a fucking good actor. That's how they got their name.
I did not see this. I purposefully did not see this. But everything I've heard or seen about it blows my mind. You told me a while ago that it has a major story beat is based around the Eric Stoltz Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Which is such to me is such a non-mainstream thing to know. And I'm not trying to push my glasses up and be a nerd about it. I'm just saying I'm surprised you'd reference Eric Stoltz's Back to the Future in a mainstream film. It's such a below the surface thing to know about. I've seen the multiverse clip with Nicolas Cage and Christopher Reeve, and look, you mentioned this, that the way they promoted it was they got all these people to talk about it. I read a tweet where James Gunn said it's his favorite movie of the year, and that is truly the death knell. Because for me, caring about James Gunn, if he's willing to either genuinely like this movie or he's selling out and saying it is, because that multiverse clip I've seen looks like the death of fucking cinema. It looks like everything wrong with pop culture at the moment. It's like a joke. Yeah. It's a joke, what's the most creatively bankrupt offensive thing we could do in a movie where everyone is very vocal about not liking this kind of shit these days. Like, it could be, if this came out in 2019, like pre-Rise of Skywalker, maybe then it would have like any, some kind of interesting clout to it. But unfortunately, this movie was delayed for 300 years, and so what at the time when it was first announced, the very like the very experimental like multiverse crossing over, like turning
Flashpoint being like, it's one of the highest rated animated Justice League movies, and the animated one's great.
And doing that so that like I've talked about this before, and I don't know if I've ever quite articulated exactly what I mean, but I think it's very interesting that audiences at large in the age of the multiverse are very willing to accept the idea that like IPs that exist separately in real life exist as other dimensions fictionally in these movies. And when the Flash movie, the details of it being Flashpoint, was first announced, that hadn't been done, and it was genuinely quite a compelling idea. I remember hearing about it in like 2017, maybe was when I heard
like
it was
Michael Keaton
Flashpoint.
might be coming back, and
all very interesting shit. And now we live in a post Spider-Man No Way Home world where it's like, this is bad. This is terrorism. This is using what people like in other things as a placeholder for actual compelling story. It's going, hey, you like that thing? Look, we regenerated Christopher Reeve, and you're supposed to like this because you like Christopher Reeve, but it's fucking ghoulish. It's pure evil, is it not?
It's interesting because it's like, I was about to say, this is like, it's reminding me of your Space Jam, like IP harvesting rant. But it's not even IP harvesting. It's literally like, see this person you loved, and it's like, what you...
We recreated him in a computer. Isn't that interesting? It's necromancy. It's digital necromancy.
100%. And it's similar to what you were saying about Across the Spider-Verse, like actually don't bring in this scene from another person's movie, another person's creative ideas, like, and with Across the Universe, you're like, no, yours are better. Your ideas are better. So don't feel like it's like when you've got a friend who like idolizes someone who's really crap, and they're just like, oh, if only they would like take notice of me or whatever, like, and you're like, no, you're awesome. Like, just leave it. Yeah.
He's talking about you, the listener.
Also, just quickly flag that you called it Across the Universe, not Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's very funny to think of Across the Universe being the movie that we're talking about.
The Beatles jukebox musical.
Yeah, like the IP harvesting multiverse. To the max.
So, Pixar movie came out this year, Elemental. Pixar, no longer a sure thing. Elemental is cute.
I liked it. Yeah,
it's a 3.5-star movie. It's very cute. It's a very like I liked the it's a high concept romance. It is just a romance. It's a Romeo and Juliet story, but it's very cute.
Yeah,
I liked it. Asteroid City. I just watched this morning, and
I watched it the other night.
Wes Anderson is an interesting director for me. So the first film I saw of his was, and I've said this before, and I'm reiterating myself, but like the first film I saw of his was Moonrise Kingdom. I saw it in the cinema. Enjoyed it enough, but I've always said like, oh, I'm not really a Wes Anderson fan because but it's like I've now been following his films for like more than half his career, or like half his career at least.
Exact same situation with me. Like I said to my flatmate the other day, I actually haven't seen that many Wes Anderson films, and then I listed over half of his filmography that I have seen.
But I think I liked Asteroid City. It's a 3.5 or 4-star movie for me, but I think that like Wes Anderson films are great to look at, and it's everyone's first favorite director because it's the first director that you can understand what a director does.
Yeah, exactly.
And but I think his cold, emotionless style of delivery just it doesn't work for me. Like,
right.
And I think that's for me is the thing. Like watching this film, I was maybe able to put my finger on it a little bit more about like, yeah, I think this is why I'm not on the same level of love with Wes Anderson as everyone else seems to be.
Yeah,
I
didn't see
fucking
this-
love Fantastic Mr. Fox though.
Nice. I didn't see this for a while, and I'd heard it was like kind of average, which disappointed me because I thought the trailer looked really cool.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I loved it. I
Yeah.
thought it was so good.
It's
I
probably
think,
one of my favorites of his, but it's just that the emotionless thing just keeps me at arm's length.
Right.
Yeah.
So one film it reminded me of, a film that I don't like, and I'm not liking it against the grain because most people do like this movie, is the movie Rubber, about the psycho tire that kills people. And what I never liked about Rubber was how like psycho telekinetic tire that kills people is enough, do that movie. But if you've seen Rubber, you'll know that it's like its narrative device is this bullshit self-aware meta thing where like there's an audience watching the events play out through binoculars, and it's all about like it's doing all that. And Asteroid City does this too. Jeremy, the framing device of Asteroid City is that you are watching a play, a very famous play called Asteroid City, and every now and then one of the actors will leave the film and go backstage where they're complaining about lines or don't understand something, and they ask. And when that first started happening, when the first scene happened where it was like, by the way, this has got some funky narrative device in it, I was like, why? I'm not in the mood for this.
Yeah.
But the way they swing it, the way they use it, I thought ended up being really clever, because there's a scene right at the start where the guy that's playing Jason Schwartzman, who's playing a guy who's playing the main character in the film, you see the scene where he visits the playwright, played by Edward Norton, and sort of like proves that he can play the main role. And he like asks him like, oh, why does Augie burn his hand on the Jiffy Pop? And he like, they discuss why the character would do that. And then an hour later, that happens in the film. Yeah, like towards the end of the film, you see that scene happen that they talked about over an hour earlier, and because they talked about it over an hour earlier, it's a really sneaky way to like tell, don't show, because they go, why did he do it? I think he did it like this. And then when he does it in the actual play or the actual movie, nothing is spoken about the meaning behind it, you know? And it's things like that. There are like deleted scenes. There's like a really touching line of dialogue that you only hear when they're talking about the play backstage. I ended up, that went from being like, this is going to ruin the movie for me, to this is the thing I'm most into in this movie. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of it, did it feel like it was going to be like a really clunky, high concept, like mechanics sort of thing? It's
black and white,
and then you realize your enjoyment of the film was really your enjoyment of how much they were pulling off this high concept.
Exactly, and like the themes of the film, which I don't know if I know well enough to necessarily regale you with them, but like they are enhanced by having characters struggle with having to perform. Like, essentially, Jason Schwartzman's character arc is, I don't understand the play I'm performing. And that plays into his character as well, of not understanding what to do or where he is in his life. And it's very delicious. I thought it was very well done and very
it is a good film.
Interesting.
There's also, without spoiling it, there's like a stop motion character that appears like in the middle of the film. Didn't know that was coming. Slayed me.
Insane thing to put in the film. Yeah.
Oh my god, so good.
And also when there is, I'll try speaking non-spoilers, when there is a cameo of that stop motion animated character behind the stage, best line in the film. I thought it was so. Can we just say it? Can we just spoil it, or are you going to watch it, Jeremy?
No, I won't watch it.
So essentially the film, like all through the marketing, it lists like the massive cast list, and then it says, and Jeff Goldblum as the alien, right? He wasn't in any of the trailers, and so it's like, Jeff Goldblum's playing an alien? What does that mean, right? And the alien is just a stop motion animated character, but then, you know, in the final moments, or maybe the start of the third act of the film, Jason Schwartzman walks out of the play, walks past Jeff Goldblum sitting with his, you know, his costume off, and he's saying to like the makeup artist, you know, I like to think that I'm not actually playing an alien, I'm playing a metaphor. And Jason Schwartzman stops and goes, a metaphor for what? And he goes, No, I haven't figured that out yet. And it's so funny because that's his whole struggle in a microcosm. Loved it. Thought it was such a funny line.
Yeah.
This one was great.
That's
now
great.
I think about it. No Hard Feelings, the sex comedy of the year.
It's back. The average sex comedy is back with No Hard Feelings. A solid 2.5 to 3 star sex comedy, ladies and gentlemen. It's back. We are so back. Did you guys see? No one else saw it but
No,
me?
I was tossing up between that or Asteroid City this morning, and I watched Asteroid City.
You made the right choice. I thought it was fine. It's okay. I think Jennifer Lawrence is insane. It's a really a new role for her. A lot of people talked about how it's problematic because it's essentially like an older woman preying on a teenager.
But that is also the
know.
entire plot of the film, isn't it? That's the point.
Yeah. Of the two sex comedy revivals this year, Bottoms is far and away that's the one people should be being it's back. The sex comedy is back.
So finishing off the first half of the year, we've got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which was a massive flop, and this was, people thought this would make $1 billion, and people
Jeremy didn't even see it.
Yeah. It's on Disney Plus, I'm pretty sure now, but it's
And I won't see it. Honestly, if someone said, "Hey, do you want to watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?" I'll be like, no.
I would kill that man.
I mean, as you said, Richard, earlier on in this episode, my biggest takeaway from it was, fuck, Steven Spielberg's a good director.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said, because even the bad Indiana Jones movies just feel warmer and friendlier and closer than James Mangold's Dial of Destiny, which is just I didn't hate it, and there's some interesting stuff in it, but overall, just I wish Spielberg directed it, you know?
Yeah, for more thoughts, check it out, Patreon.
Yeah, true, where we talked about a seal escaping Auckland Zoo for most of our discussion.
That's right.
Is that the first part? Is that part one of every film we watched in 2023?
I think so.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Tune in for part 2, which is coming at you next week, where we'll talk from July onwards.
Mm-hmm. If you want to hear our thoughts on Barbenheimer, tune in.
Exactly. Please subscribe to all of us at all our places. We're on Instagram at Popture, Twitter at Popture. Join our Discord where you can tell us your most favorite or whatever disappointing, whatever this thing is now. Tell us a film you saw in 2023.
Give us your thoughts on all the films you watched.
Yeah, and
only up till June.
And Patreon if you want to get involved in there. And stay tuned for the post-credit scene coming at you after this music ends. Gentlemen, we'll see the audience next week, but we'll see each other, and literally there will be no time between when we stop talking about this and when we start talking about it again.
And yet you're still talking about it.
It's funny how they work, isn't it? Welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get us to talk about something. And this is the post-credit scene, a segment that Richard and I are paid for, but Jeremy does not receive any of the earnings from Patreon. So feel free to not say anything, just like you have been doing for this whole podcast.
although I do have to say, I do receive the contra in kind benefit of vampiring off of your Disney Plus subscription.
That is true.
There you go.
In that way, well, actually, my children get to enjoy the Patreon.
Oh, I'm so glad.
That's great. Also, so if you're listening to this and you are signed up to this Patreon tier, we are getting close to the end of this batch of questions, so please send in your post-credit scenes questions. We need some more for 2024. But today's one comes to us from Benjamin Adams, who says, do you guys hang out outside of the podcast? What's that like, and what do you do?
Richard and I hang out outside of the podcast plenty when we're in the same city, and not to pull a very disappointing curtain back, it's pretty similar to how we are on the podcast. I don't think it's that different. I think here's the biggest difference is instead of talking like this when I'm hanging out with Richard, I'll talk like this.
Yeah, but we talk about the same. We talk about the same shit.
Same shit.
I see Jeremy.
I would say we have closeness that is maybe not always. We're close. Richard and I are close friends. That is maybe not always clear on pod because he's always making fun of me. But
Yeah,
we have each other's backs. Jeremy, I haven't talked to outside of the podcast in years.
That is absolutely not true.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
well,
right.
yeah. I mean, I see
Jeremy
Jeremy less because obviously you got kids, but we've been to a couple of movies together and stuff, and we.
Every now and then, Richard will drop off a microphone to my house, and I might be there and I might not be.
Yeah, but then the biggest sort of like when we record these podcasts and you come to my house and we'll hang out for a bit before or after. Well, usually by the time we finish recording, Jeremy's like, I fucking have to leave. I had to leave an hour ago.
My marriage is ended.
Which looks like it's about to happen now as we go in to record presumably another 2 hours of every film we saw.
Well, let's talk about it. All right, anyway, come there.